I'm on with Jamie, and he's goes to Christ the Rock Church with me, and he's in the military. How's it going, Jamie?
Good yourself.
Oh, I'm doing good. I got my Jesus shirt on. God's not dead. That was a great movie. Did you see that film?
Oh yeah, that movie was awesome. I think it's my all-time favorite.
You know what I liked about it? I liked the fact that it wasn't watered down. I mean, it shows you if you give if you give your life to Christ, that there are some consequences in your own family. I mean, it's not all a powder puff, feel good. God will give you a nice new car and a brand new house. There's some consequences to being a Christian. Amen.
Yeah. And what I found funny, we had to drive 20 minutes to go see it because that first week, not many theaters had it. And as soon as they realized how much it was pulling in, all the theaters the next week started trickling it in, realizing they made a mistake.
Maybe Hollywood's going to figure this thing out.
Yeah, except every time they get a hold of it, they try to water it down or just change it completely like they did with Noah. I wouldn't even watch that one.
I didn't see Noah, but
Yeah,
what do you
same.
expect a movie made by an atheist? I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah, exactly. I won't even go see that one. So.
It's getting a lot of publicity. The Christians are saying don't go see it, and then all the atheists are wondering what are the Christians upset about. Anyway, well, I don't know what all we can talk about. Why don't you share your testimony? You're going to be speaking at Jesus Jam, Texas. We appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. What's your testimony?
All right. Well, my testimony is, I mean, a lot of my issues came throughout my childhood and teenage years. I was on drugs quite a bit and kind of just dropped out of school real at a young age and just kind of hung out with the wrong crowd. And drugs and alcohol kind of became my crutch on everything. And then I joined the military in '99, and that pushed the drugs aside, but it definitely didn't push the alcohol aside. Seeing how, with the military you get urinalysis and stuff, so that helped me in that aspect. But obviously something was still missing, and I always used alcohol to cover that void, I guess. And I deployed for Iraq during OIF 1, and during that time I was married to my daughter's mother. And while I was over there, she kind of put me in a real financial bind and just did a lot of stuff that wasn't good. And when I came back, right before I deployed back, she wrote me and ended up leaving, but left me with my daughter. So I became a single parent at that time. And I think it was at then that I started realizing that I needed more, but I really didn't know what. And when I deployed to Iraq the second time, that's when, and it's really funny because I already had met my current wife, Leah. She worked for me for a little bit, but I think God realized it wasn't our time yet. Plus, it turns out we met in Germany and we grew up 15 minutes apart, but he waits to introduce us to Germany. Um, and
No, that's crazy. You guys met in Germany, but what? You went
yeah,
to?
we grew up 15 minutes apart, and we didn't find that out till we met in Germany. And, yeah.
That's
And,
God.
but what makes it even crazier, when she first came to work for me as my soldier, was right when my first wife just really did me wrong. So I didn't have a very good input of women, and I was I made some rude comments, I guess. So she didn't like me at all, and she worked with me when we came back from Iraq for a couple of months and got moved to another company. When we deployed the second time, when I made staff sergeant, they said they were moving me to her company, and she actually prayed that God would not send me to her company to work with me. And God, of course, had other plans. And when I fell in love with her, I mean, I fell in love with the Lord at the same time. I mean, that's what drew me to her. We worked in a motor pool with some pretty foul people. We were all foul-mouthed, except for her. She had Jesus stuff all over. Always, you could tell she was the happiest person, and you could just generally tell that she had something that nobody else had, and it really drew me. And through her, I found the Lord, and then He just kind of worked the rest out between us too. So,
Amen. You were talking about um, drugs, alcohol before you went in the military, and how you kind of stopped with the drugs when you got in the military. But one of the things that C.S. Lewis talks about is something called a God-shaped hole. And it's like a lot of us are actually seeking for God, but we don't know it. We try to fill that hole with other things. And then, is that kind of what was going on with you?
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, hindsight's always 2020, and looking back, you can see the different parts of my life where God really did reach and speak to me. I mean, there was times I guess I could always say that I believed in God. I just didn't know him and didn't know how to live for him. And there's just times like one incident, I think before we get saved, we kind of use God as a crutch, and that's when we go to him for every little issue. And looking back and realized him to show me how much that he really works. The reason I joined the army is I worked construction, Pittman construction. I poured wall, and I remember one of the days we were going on like 12 hours of days. I was completely exhausted and you know, harmlessly enough, but not realizing how powerful I was doing in my head. I was actually praying that, I could just get hurt and collect workman's comp and kind of, just being so tired. Well, that day, 700 pounds fell on me, broke my pelvic bone, cracked my ribs, put me in a wheelchair for 6 months. And looking back, I realized that was, God, and that had such a huge impact and changed my life. I mean, because of it, I ended up joining the army because when I was well enough to start working again, my boss said he would take me back on light duties, but the day that I cut the workman's comp off, he called and laid me off. So then I was sitting there with, young with a wife and had to do something. So I joined the army, which in turn led me to my future wife and to the Lord. So, I mean, it all works out. But it's just funny that it was me selfishly asking for something to be lazy, and God shows just how powerful he was and answered it in a way that you can just never imagine or expect it would affect the rest of your life the way it does too. So
Yeah, I know how that works. You want something. God answers prayers in the weirdest ways sometimes. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you actually too, we're doing this Jesus Jam thing. We've been wanting to do the worship in the park for a long time, get together some bands, just have a Christian day at the park and do something. But also, when this idea happened, we were having a Bible study, and somebody goes, Wounded Warrior, and we need to support Wounded Warrior. And it's like God came in, and man, we're around Fort Hood, and I mean, all this, it's just like, bam, you've got to do this. And one of the things that I've noticed is the religious climate in the military has been, Jesus has been kind of like going down the totem pole for years, slowly but surely. What is it like? What's Christianity like in the military, and especially since this event happened last week, the shooting and so forth? What's going on? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'd say the Christianity in the military is about on par with the way it is in the rest of the United States. I mean, I think it's obvious that Christianity is not the cool and popular thing, definitely, and sometimes it gets a little bit of a scuff, or I would say not scuff, because I don't get negative side effects for being a Christian, but I mean, you do sometimes gain that second look, like when they find out that, I won't go to any movies that show nudity or anything like that. When, the majority of the military population is going to cuss, drink, and they find out that you don't, it kind of sets you apart a little bit. But to me, that's a good thing because it kind of shows, the life of Christ a little bit. And it might be the only preaching that some of them get, but it's definitely got a different feel to it, especially with today's I guess free choice type society where we all should just be able to do what we want when we want. And as Christians, we don't necessarily believe that. So I think it sets us apart a little bit.
Yeah, amen. I was reading a story today about how kids, he's 9 years old, he wants to read the Bible in school, and they're saying you can't do that. It seems like the prevailing climate is we're going to lower Christianity to it's just like every other religion now. So anyway, how were you affected from the last week's tragedy? That last week? That was last week, wasn't it? It's my.
Yeah. That was last week. It was pretty close to home. I can't go into a lot of details, but it was to home. And the one thing though, I will say that it's amazing to see how resilient our country and our soldiers are. I mean, to come into the next work day and just see how motivated everybody still was and how the missions just were still made to happen and the rebuild process went like that. I mean, it was really awe-inspiring.
Yeah, amen. And I was at Bible study last Wednesday, and some people didn't come to Bible study because they couldn't. I mean, this event. I'm like, oh wow, this is affecting me. People aren't coming to Bible study, and I started looking around. I started realizing, hey, do you realize half the people in this room have something to do with the military. I mean, there's a lot of people in the military in this area. It's
Oh, definitely.
amazing.
I'd say the majority in this area has something affiliated with the military one way or another. So,
Yeah, well, it started hitting home. I'm like, going, wow, I didn't really realize it until now. So, anyway, Jamie, thank you very much for giving your testimony. Jamie's going to be with us on Memorial Day 2014 in Lampasas at Ruth Eakin Theater, giving his testimony. We appreciate it, dude. Thanks a lot.
well, thank you.
All right, God bless you.
All right, bless you.